All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started. I will keep you muted for now. There are 4 people meditating live with me here at Against the Stream in Venice. We didn't get the shutdown memo that apparently was put out today. So we'll just plead ignorance, the 5th, as they say. Julie's looking at me. She knows I'm lying because she told me about it earlier today. So apparently I did hear about it, but these guys maybe didn't. Well, welcome everybody, and we'll just jump right in and start with a sitting meditation. Find a way to sit that's upright and relaxed. As you're ready, allowing your eyes to be closed. And releasing any unnecessary tension that you can release, softening the brow and jaw. Breathing in, establishing mindfulness of the breath, feeling the sensations breath creates. And then breathing out, soften, relax shoulders and throat, jaw, belly. Soften your heart if you can. And I think it's important as we begin a period of formal meditation to set our intentions, our aspirations, to remind ourselves why we are practicing meditation. So at the very least, I invite you to establish an attitude of friendliness, of kindness, of compassion. And if you have some grander aspirations, perhaps for the benefit of all sentient beings, you can establish those aspirations. May we come to awakening, to create a positive change on this planet. And then just settling into present time awareness, mindfulness of the body sitting. Sounds, thoughts, sensations, emotions, images, smells, tastes, moods, attitudes of mind. This human condition, sitting, breathing organism with consciousness of oneself. Right now, it's like this. I'm sitting, breathing, feeling, thinking. For the first few minutes, we take the Buddha's advice and place the attention on the breath, letting everything else recede to the background, beginning with Mindfulness of breathing. Breathing in, one nose, I breathe in, breathing out. One nose, I breathe out. So what gives you contact, connection, presence with your breath? Where do you feel it? Nostrils, chest, belly? Know thy breath as it comes and goes. And when the attention wanders back into thinking, just gently return. We're not trying to stop the mind. But in the beginning, we are trying to stop indulging in the thinking mind as we connect and sustain non-judgmental, present time awareness in the body, paying special attention to the sensations of the breath. One of the qualities of mindfulness is investigation. So it's awareness with a quality of interest in what's happening moment to moment. So what can you learn from your breath? And said that this physical body can reveal all of the Dharma, all of the liberating insights that we're looking for. We can't think our way to the truth, but we can experience it here in the body with mindfulness of the impermanent, impersonal, and unsatisfactory nature of experience in the body. course, it's fine to continue the breath as primary object if you feel you need to be a bit more concentrated. But the Buddha's instructions expand, inviting us to include our whole body, scanning the attention through your body from head to toe, feeling all of the sensations. This body made up of the four elements, these four elements that we share with all existence, all matter, all living beings, as well as this planet itself. This body, which consists of all of the parts of organs and bones, muscles and tendons. A heart beating all by itself. Lungs breathing all by themselves. And the mind continues to think all by itself. Thoughts arising and passing, and we become more and more open and inclusive, observing, rather than ignoring the mind. Turn the attention towards the process, arising and passing of thoughts and feelings, plans and memories, hopes and fears. Mindfulness is liberating because it shows us the truth that everything that arises passes. Each breath comes and goes. Each thought appears, sustains, perhaps proliferates, exaggerates, but also passes. When our experience is perceived as painful or unpleasant, natural tendency is to meet it with aversion, fear or anger, resentment. And mindfulness, the Dharma, teaches us to learn to tolerate our pain, to learn to care about it, rather than resisting and hating, to soften into the discomfort in the body and the heart and the mind. This is the beginning of compassion, mercy, not making it worse. The more we come to understand impermanence, the more we see how our tendency to get attached, to cling to pleasant experience, creates suffering, trying to hold on to something that we can't really control. A repetitive craving, clinging, addiction. And mindfulness teaches us the Dharma, shows us the ability to let go, to accept the impermanent pleasure of the mind, of the body, the heart, with appreciation, with gratitude, enjoyment, but with non-clinging. When you're ready, allowing your eyes to open and continue meditating. Eyes open, moving, mindfulness of seeing, of the change in sensations in your body as you stretch or whatever feels good. Have a drink of water. Anybody that's new to our community tonight, welcome to you. Welcome, nice to see everybody at home tuning in, handful of people meditating with me here in person. I feel like actually mostly what I want to do tonight is dialogue, Q&A. If there's Dharma practice, Buddhist-based stuff on your mind, I want to discuss with you guys what's on your mind around your practice, around the teachings, anything. I'll start with a few reflections of my own. I was just thinking of I don't know, impermanence and change and you know, like this pandemic that we're in the midst of, and the huge changes to our lives. For most people, huge changes. I mean, maybe there's a handful of people that kind of mostly stay at home and, you know, go to the grocery store, and it hasn't changed their life that much. I don't know, but I guess there would be some people that it hasn't affected all that much. But I think for most of us, certainly my own subjective experience is that I'm a very active person, out and about a lot, very social person, very involved in community, as you all know, whether it's Buddhist community or recovery community or Buddhist recovery community, and also social, you know, out with the guys riding motorcycles, or summer, I've been at the beach a lot, I've been surfing more lately, and so, you know, I'm a very active person, and certainly these last months of the pandemic and the clamp down have been a big change, in a lot of ways a big loss, especially the loss of the kind of social interactions that so much of my life is centered on. And this is one of the realities, and sometimes we're able to, it feels like sometimes when everything is going along, one of the things that we can be asleep to. It's so easy to go to sleep and be in delusion about the unreliable nature of things, where we can get so attached and so sort of entitled of like, of course I can see my friends, of course I can eat inside at restaurants, like of not being awake to actually we can't rely on things, and that loss is a part of what's happening here. We live in this impermanent universe, this realm of constant change, and what it was like 6 months ago is not what it's been like for the last, I don't know, where are we going on, 5 or 6 months, or 5 months into this, and then this newest, okay, we're opening up, and then the numbers, you know, rising for corona infections, COVID-19, and then shut down. And so apparently today, Los Angeles, I don't know if it's the whole state, but said, okay, 3 more weeks of kind of, you know, shut it down again. No eating in restaurants, no gathering in spiritual communities, no, which, you know, I know that there's a lot of different views and opinions on how this is all being handled. And we are all sort of entitled to our own views and opinions. But, you know, it is what it is. It's what sort of, you know, the government, you know, the sort of legal system and what, you know, the scientific community is suggesting. And it's okay to feel, it's important to tune in to feeling the grief around it, you know, and the craving for it to be different than it is, right? This is the way it is. And then there's the reality that I don't like it. And How much are we going to suffer about it, and how much are we going to say, I don't really like it and I'm going to accept it and try not to suffer too much about it. Thinking about loss and impermanence, I reported about a month ago that my motorcycle got stolen. I went down to my garage to jump on my bike to go for a ride on a Saturday and wasn't there. And it was such an interesting experience when you're robbed, whether your house is robbed or your bicycle or your motorcycle. Or I don't know if you've ever had any sort of big possession of yours that all of a sudden it's not there. And it's just such a strange mind state of, did I park it somewhere else? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where it lives. And it's not there. And then I'm just, again, impermanence and going like, okay, sadness and anger and watching the emotional response to loss. And so I really was pretty sure that when somebody steals an old Harley Davidson, they know what they're doing, and they are going to take it apart and scrape the numbers off of the frame and sell the motor, and it's worth a little bit of money. You take it apart. Actually, I think that those old Harleys are probably worth more in parts than they are together for for the most part, if you part it out and sell it right. And so I just had really let go, not with no suffering, with with some suffering. I let go and had no expectation, no hope that it would ever be found. And last weekend, I was in Santa Cruz. I was up there 4th of July and hanging with family and surfing and having a good time. And my phone started ringing from a friend who, actually my friend who I bought the motorcycle from, and who rents a space here at the building in Venice. His name's Jason Schneidman. He has the hair salon downstairs. It's called the Men's Groomer. And he calls me, it might've been on 4th of July, maybe it was the next day, Sunday perhaps, I forget. And he said, I just saw somebody riding your bike and I'm chasing him down Lincoln Boulevard, and I called the cops and the cops told me not to chase him, but I'm gonna get that motherfucker. And I'm like on the phone with him and he's like, okay, I'm going left on, and then I'm going right. And then, oh, he ditched me on Speedway, but I'm going to find him. I'll call you back. And so it's just this new wave of emotion, of experience of, oh, wow, like I had completely written that off. And now it's like back on the map. It's back in the world of possibility. Like it was gone. And in my psyche, it didn't exist anymore. And now it exists, and all of a sudden, and it's mine. From this sort of like it was mine and letting go, and that was I used to have a motorcycle like that, and now again, it's mine, and someone else is on it, and my friend is chasing them, and anyways, I ended up getting it back. He followed him and chased him, and the police found it, and so just I don't know. I try to look at all of my life as spiritual practice, not just what we're doing here on the meditation cushion, and my relationship to material things also as part of my practice of appreciation and non-attachment and practice. So I just thought that I'd report that gain and loss. There was loss, and then there was gain, and now a heightened, I guess it's fear, but a heightened awareness of that my motorcycle could get stolen. I think I was a little bit in delusion, denial, a little too comfortable, a little too like, who's going to steal this old motorcycle? Like, people don't do that. And then just like, oh yeah, no, not only do they steal it and ride around the neighborhood for a month, which I think is just really insane. But it happened. One more reflection, and then curious if you have, I see one hand up, and if other people have thoughts that they want to discuss. My other reflection, a little bit about impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and actually wisdom. This is something, wisdom from an 8-year-old. My son, Stevie Ray Strummer, gave me a wonderful Dharma teaching this last weekend. Stevie Ray wanted these walkie-talkies, these long-range, heavy-duty, kids and walkie-talkies. Although now, like, my son has a cell phone, so walkie-talkies aren't that, like, when I was a kid, it was like a walkie-talkie, you could fucking talk to people. Now they have phones and they're like, whatever, I'll just text you. But anyways, he was like, I want these walkie-talkies. And I was like, okay, fine. And I got them for him, ordered them online, and they came. And when he was opening it, we were putting them together, and he said, that he was expressing, he's like, Dad, I love you so much. These are so awesome. And then sort of unsolicited, he said to me, I am going to really like these for about 2 days. And just that insight that he has into himself, I thought it was just so brilliant that, like, this kid understands impermanence and his relationship to stuff of like, I want it, I got it, I'm so stoked, and I'm aware that this will not satisfy me. I'm completely awake to the impermanent and unsatisfactory nature of material things. And this will, I get it. How important is that? Like, how different would your life be if you actually went into things with that, like, yeah, I'm going to be stoked for a couple of days about this, rather than that delusion that we so often get into of like, I'm going to be happy forever if I get this material thing that I want. And then we were reading the instructions, and he's like, whoa, these are really powerful. I've never had any this powerful. And he was doing the math on how many square miles these things go. And he figured out that there's a 6-mile radius. And then he lit up again, and he was like, Dad, 6-mile radius. I might like these things for a month. He's like, I think I'm actually going to appreciate these things for a longer period of impermanent satisfaction. So I just thought that was such a great, and I don't know how responsible I am for that. I mean, I imagine, growing up around Buddhists who are always talking about impermanence and unsatisfactory, and they listen to my Dharma talks sometimes, and I'm sure he picked that up from me in some way or another. But I feel like when I was 8, I didn't have that awareness that things pass, or that I felt constantly disappointed, or constantly I wasn't aware that, like, it's okay to just like something and let it arise and pass. So some thoughts about impermanence, and I guess ultimately, like always, it comes back around to the importance of non-clinging, non-attachment, letting go, and how much easier said than done it is. And then I've been in this, the last couple of years with all of the big changes and loss in my life and in our community and my status in the world, all of this. I've been really in this internal investigation around when is it appropriate to let go? When is non-attachment just, when is it the wise response, and when is it a little bit irresponsible? You know what I mean by that? Like, I just saw this place in my life where people were saying all of this stuff that was absolutely not true about me, and then other people were being like, dude, you need to defend yourself. And I was like, let go. They're like, it's irresponsible to not fight for against the stream, or fight for refuge recovery, or because sometimes if you just let go in this world, people with nefarious agendas will steal from you. They will take your motorcycle. They will take your trademarks. They will take your reputation. And so when is non-attachment being like, oh yeah, I'm so attached, I just leave my motorcycle laying around with my keys in it? Irresponsible. My keys were not in my motorcycle when it got stolen, but it wasn't locked up. So I'm in that, and again, I don't feel like there's any answer of like, this is when it's letting go and this is when it's irresponsible. But I feel like that's a very important reflection. When do we fight? When do we, bring some fierceness to the activism in the world, to our Dharma practice, to our relationships, to our passions, healthy engagement? And when is it sort of, because sometimes non-attachment can be complacency, can be avoidance, can be irresponsible, I believe.
Did you figure that out?
I have not. There's no way to figure it out. It's, it's for each of us something that you have to look at in your own life, where, it's the discernment that the Dharma brings to us, where we see a little bit more clearly. But I am proposing it not as something that we figure out, but as something that we contemplate. So questions, anything you want to talk about? I see I have a hand here from Katie. I will unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question. Katie, you still there? No? Did you no longer have a question, Katie? Okay. Rick, let me take this one from Alan. I'll take a question from Alan and then from Rick. Oh, that's privately. Okay. Rick, what's your question?
It may be one of the oldest ones in the book. Your bike story brought up another one, but I'll ask the first one I was going to ask. When the practice asks us to watch the mind, how would you describe, what tool are we being called upon to use in order to do that?
Rick's question is, what tool are we using to watch the mind? The mind watches the mind. Consciousness, awareness. But ultimately, we are training the mind, observing the mind, responding to the mind with the mind. It's, it's meta awareness. It's awareness of that you're aware, conscious that you're conscious. So there's not some, as far as I can tell, as far as I understand, there's not some separate thing that is the observer. It's, you know, it's all part of the human mind. It's all part of this developed large neocortex brain that we have that is aware of itself. Is that how it feels to you? Does that make sense?
It's certainly next to impossible to step outside the notion, to think of this thing other than the mind. Unless, and I know soul is not a word we bring up here often. But
Yeah.
it's hard to, yes, I guess it does make sense.
But, you know, even neuroscience can't find where that consciousness is in the brain. They haven't been able to say it's this part of the brain that is the conscious part that knows everything else. There's just something about the whole factor of interplay with nervous system and digestive system and body and mind that is conscious, and that we are able to watch the mind with the mind. Consciousness observing itself. Welcome. Question here from Amy. What do you believe is the one singular most important thing for a person who is new to meditation to know? A lot of my friends say they cannot meditate. I want to expand on this, but not force anything. Also, thank you, needed this. Single most important thing for people to know. Well, I have a hard time answering that, Amy, because there's a lot of important things to know. But people who say I can't meditate usually have an idea that meditation means stopping your mind. And so, you know, this sort of like, I can't sit down and be completely comfortable and have a quiet mind is usually what people who are saying I can't meditate, is because they have a delusional idea of what it means to meditate. Everyone can meditate. Meditating from a Buddhist perspective means bringing awareness to what you're doing. And whether that's sitting down and bringing awareness to the experience of sitting down and breathing. And so you can do that, and anyone can do that. Or walking meditation and bringing awareness to walking, or you know, this term meditation means to pay attention. And nobody has the inability to pay attention, no matter how bad your ADD, hyperactivity, ADHD, no matter how scattered your attention is, you can still pay attention to the scatteredness, to the chaoticness of the mind, and of, you know, of your own attention bouncing all over the place. But I find that if people are educated that mindfulness meditation is a practice of observing what is, that it changes it, you know, changes that, oh, I can be with that. I can observe my, you know, I can pay attention and be with. I thought that meditation meant stopping my mind, and of course I can't do that. And very few people are very successful at having a quiet mind, although at times if you meditate a lot, it does seem to quiet down, settle a bit. And the other thing that I think is important for, let me think of a couple. I like this question, so I see your hand, but let me think of this question a little bit more. I tend to take the angle of that if we really want to be happy, truly happy in life, that meditation isn't a luxury, but a necessity. And that we're born into this body. And so, you know, Amy, you're asking this question, if we can explain to people that so much of the suffering that we have, the clinging, the aversion, the self-centeredness, the fear-based, difficult, so much of that can be transformed through meditation. And that if we really explain this to people, if they get interested enough and they say, well, I'd like to meditate, and we put the correct frame around it, that it's possible to do this, and you start to understand the impermanent nature of things, and that helps you let go more, and you start to build more tolerance, and that actually sitting down and being uncomfortable is good for you, and that the benefits of sitting down and being uncomfortable will lead to more compassion, and the more compassion you have through sitting meditation, the more freedom from suffering you'll have for all of the unpleasant experiences that will arise in your life. So sometimes if it's explained in those ways, and we can disabuse people of their delusions that meditation is like sitting down and feeling good all of the time, and saying like, actually, a lot of this is about just learning how to be uncomfortable and to let go, and that you'll learn that slowly over the years of practice. I hope that's helpful. Katie, do you still want to, I see your note, do you still want to ask your question? You can if you want to. I can unmute you. Let me see.
Hi.
Katie, oh,
You-
yes, yes.
Oh, great. Hi. So when I had my hand up, it was right around the beginning of your story about your motorcycle getting stolen. And I had a story that related to that, but it's not nearly as funny. I'm much more interested in what you're saying about consciousness and, you know, the mind being able to observe itself. I have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I had an episode. I haven't had an episode in years, but I had a schizophrenic episode while I was working last week. I'm actually seeing a specialist tomorrow because of the incident. And when it happened, I lost my awareness. It was like do you know what it's like to have dream awareness, where you know you're in a dream?
I do know what that's like.
It was a little bit like the opposite of that, where I was awake, but I thought I was in a dream.
It's like a surreal experience.
Yeah, I was extremely paranoid though, and I was convinced of a terrifying reality that wasn't real.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you came out of that and were able to get stabilized.
Yeah, I took my medication, and a friend talked me into laying down and just going to sleep. And I was normal again when I woke up. But do you think that this meditation practice that you're doing is something that could help somebody like me?
Of course, I want to say yes. I'm such a fan of it, and it's transformed my life so much. But the truth is, I'm not educated enough about schizophrenia to know exactly how it will, you know, interact with, you know, some of those mind states. I believe that there has been some studies and some good writing about it. So I would encourage you to, you know, do a little bit of study, read up on it. And then also to, you know, trust your own experience, and to know that you can always pull out, that we talk about titrating, where you lean into the experience and you investigate it, and then also you can pull out, and that all of your meditation doesn't need to be long, silent sitting meditation. You can do a mindfulness within the activities of your life, walking meditation, yoga, movement practice like that. So I don't really know the answer, but I support you in your own investigation of it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Judy, go ahead.
So we're talking about impermanence, and I went from the chair to sitting because it's difficult for me. And I just thought, okay, Noah's here, let's just try to sit. So again, my leg fell asleep, and I kept on saying to myself, oh, it's gonna get so numb that I won't feel it, it'll be fine. And I kept on saying that to myself, just going, chill out, chill out, just go to someplace else. So I couldn't go to someplace else, except I was like, okay, another breath. Oh, we're getting closer to being done. It's like when you say something, go someplace else. I'm like, where the fuck? It's not over yet. And my leg is still hurting. And then finally I just can't, I don't know where to go, where my mind needs to go for me to be comfortable with sitting in that uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
I mean, I kept on, no matter what, I kept on focusing on, oh, should I move my toe to see if it's dead or not? I mean, those are the things that were going through my mind as I was feeling that, trying to not know that, telling myself, and I do understand, let's say when I want to sneeze or itch my nose, like my first reaction is to scratch my nose, but then I go, oh no, don't, because it's going to go away. And truly, it does go away.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that knee jerk. But with my leg, I can't seem to go someplace else. And I don't know where to go. Other than that, I kept on concentrating on the uncomfortableness of my leg.
So can you mostly hear her at home? Could you hear the question about sitting with discomfort and increasing the tolerance and struggling with that? One of the things that can help is just bringing the attention to the discomfort and softening around it. You know how I always start the instructions by saying, soften your brow, your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. Often when something is painful in your leg, we're tensing around it. And so breathing kind of kindness and softness into the pain can be a little bit soothing of the pain, can be kind of a physical act of compassion. And the bigger reality is it just hurts, and it's okay to be in pain, and you haven't built up the tolerance for it yet. We've been talking about this for a little while now. I feel like really just in the last year or so, we started talking about this, even though you've been practicing with me for some time. And so it takes more than a year to get used to doing this. This is why the Buddha said this is against the stream. This is counter to our instinctual drive, which is avoidance of pain. And you've been able to avoid a lot of pain in your life and find comfort, and you love comfort just like the rest of us, right? And to really establish a long-term sitting practice where you're learn to be uncomfortable takes a long term. So I think you just keep doing it, and you get there as long as you can, and then you straighten your leg like you did tonight. If you look at where it was 6 months ago, has it moved at all?
Well, I'm sitting longer on the floor.
Yeah, so you're sitting longer on the floor. And then let's see what it's like in a year, and in 2 years, and in 5 years. I feel like my first 5 years of trying to sit on a cushion on the floor were pretty fucking uncomfortable, especially the first couple of years were pretty uncomfortable. And I just learned to tolerate it. And then the body became more comfortable, and my tolerance increased for it. But I've talked to you, and I'm always talking to, I feel like it's one of the main benefits of meditation is that it teaches us compassion. It teaches us how to be uncomfortable, We have to, like, it's our only hope. There is no hope for a world of comfort. There's no hope for a world of justice. There's no hope for a world of, there's no political solution. There's no external refuge. Now, all of that having been said, I still completely think that it's good to be involved in social, political, ecological activism, but to not think that we're going to somehow make this body comfortable or this world comfortable or just. That actually we live in this realm of great ignorance and suffering and confusion, and that compassion is a necessity. And we learn that from learning to be uncomfortable and be with it and care about it, and not just hate it and, critique everything that's wrong, but learn to really be intimate with our own pain. And then we can really be empathetic with other people's pain. So just keep sitting uncomfortably. Okay, a couple more questions here. Let me see. Letting go and responsibility feels particularly relevant. COVID shit right now, I've personally been feeling really attached to the little moments of connection I get with other humans living alone, and a feeling of deep sense of yo-yoing between loss and appreciation when those moments go away. I'm wondering if there is a way to practice non-attachment to the joy and love you get from these moments after the moment. Like, can you return to those moments of connection in a way that is not of longing or expectation, but is more in line with the Dharma teaching? Basically, how do you stay present in a memory of an event or a person without creating suffering? Thank you so much for your thoughts and experience. I like that question. And the answer is yes, of course. Recollection, reflecting, reminiscing, if we can, exactly the way that you were asking it, Lee, is that if, we can reflect on these amazing things that we've done and these connections that we've had, and we can experience that joy all over. But the way that you're asking it is really important, because we can either reflect on the good old days last week or last year or, 1976, whatever it was. And we can either reflect on it with like, that was amazing and I appreciate it and I'm so grateful I had that experience and I remember it. And there's this sort of non-attached enjoyment of it over and over when you reflect on it. Or we can suffer about not having it, craving it. There can be, so I don't know any real trick here other than the more we develop awareness of impermanence and the experience of appreciation, non-attached appreciation, we can do that in the moment. And when we remember the past, we are doing that in the moment, because that memory is arising in the present moment. What's happening right now is a mind state of, a pleasant thought about the past. And it feels like this in my body. And I can practice non-attached appreciation to that, gratitude, that. So the answer is yes. And I don't have a trick. But the Dharma teaching is not ignore your mind. The Dharma teaching is know your mind. And if what has arisen is pleasant, non-attached appreciation towards that pleasant memory or fantasy or whatever it is. And if what has arisen is unpleasant, then it's tolerance and compassion, maybe forgiveness. I just feel like our memories are so complex my own, I'll reflect for a moment on this. You know, I had the experience today where for whatever reason I was looking at my phone and I was looking for a picture in my phone, but I got into this wormhole of the different albums, and it took me back to when my children were born. And so I just started kind of looking. I even took one of the pictures of my daughter when she was about 2, holding hands with 2 friends of mine, 2 of my friends, one who I'm still very connected with, one who I haven't talked to in years, and we had a kind of negative falling out. And just that sort of like watching my mind go through, you know, my daughter when she was a child, and looking at the pictures of my son when he was born. And I just had this whole sort of like process today. And joy, for sure, there was all of this like, oh, that was amazing, that was amazing, that was amazing. But then also grief and the complexity of, and it's all gone. And their childhood is gone. Their, you know, their babyhood is gone. And, you know, so that ability, our heart, our mind, whatever we want to call it, can hold both the appreciation and the grief, both the joy and the sorrow, both the I really appreciated that and it was so wonderful, and I feel lonely now. You know, you can hold both at the same time. And we do have to be careful for, I didn't feel like this was coming from this place, but we do have to be careful for always wanting to feel good and getting lost in identification with the good old days, and it was so good before, and now we have to build our tolerance for, as my teacher reminded me last winter, he said, you want to practice the Dharma? Got to learn to be lonely. Got to learn to be hungry. Got to learn to be bored. And that's our Dharma practice. Learn to be hungry, learn to be lonely, learn to be bored. There might have been a 4th, but I forget it. Okay. Yeah, Alan, if you have a question, you can jump on. You can unmute yourself, I think. Let me see. Maybe I have to unmute you. Can you unmute now, Alan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I saw a movie over the weekend, sort of a small, intimate English movie, like English movies are sometimes. And at the end of it, the movie has to do with a competition or a quarrel between 2 people who are kind and generous, and one person who is very powerful, very ego-driven, and very greedy. And the movie ends with the kind, gentle people having lost terribly, and the greedy woman having won tremendously. And when the movie was over, I said something to the woman I was with, and she said something. I said, I'm just sharing my anguish with you. It's a word I don't think I've ever used before, anguish. And I realized that it's an experience that I have a great deal, but it's low lying. And it has to do with what I perceive to be an inescapable cataclysm that we're all riding right now. not just from the virus. By all, I mean the planet. The anguish is intermittent. So in that sense, it feels impermanent. It comes, it goes. And in between, there are moments of joy, which also come and go. But the cataclysm does not, or the perceived impending cataclysm does not come and go. It continues. In the sense that it changes shape and dynamism and power may make it impermanent. But I don't know how to escape the sense of its impermanence, even though my feelings are impermanent. Is that making any sense?
Clarify that last piece. To escape the sense that we're in an inescapable cataclysm.
Yeah, sometimes I feel anguish about it, and sometimes I don't. So that my feelings are impermanent,
Mm-hmm.
but my perception of the ongoing issue seems to be pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to separate those so that I can see the impermanence of the cataclysm, except for its very ending, which would be certainly, complete its impermanence.
Right. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to support you in that, other than I actually believe that you are somebody that I've known for a long time, and that you're a sincere practitioner and very thoughtful and reflective, and that I believe you're doing the right thing. And that some of this is just the acceptance of I can't see clearly all of the time. I want to see clearly. I want to respond wisely. And it's why we keep practicing, why we keep showing up and connecting with each other. But mostly what I hear there is just your awareness of this process of awakening, and sometimes being quite connected to and feeling with, and sometimes it slips off the radar.
Yeah, I think that, I got that. I think I share that understanding with you. Close to home, I have 2 grandchildren. I have 3 grown children. I've been very, very blessed. I've said it many times, for the times that I've lived in, the incredible music I got to hear, the friends that I've made, the adventures I've had. And somehow I'm stuck with the idea that was really good, which I think it was. I would like good to be available to my grandchildren, my kids, and I see the shortened prospects of that being true. And that's where the sense of the consistency of this low-lying anguish exists.
Yep.
But I also see that there's almost 180, actually almost 180 million, or 80,000 Americans who have died of this virus. There are millions more who will die all over the world. We're looking at a famine which is going to eat the souls and bodies of billions of people on the planet. And my children and grandchildren are only a small part of that. But I see that I have that sense of the entirety of that, and it's not going away. I don't quite know how to deal with it. When I'm caught in it, except to see that I'm caught in it,
Right.
and act on that and allow it to be, as long as the anguish persists until something else comes up. But it returns and returns and returns.
My sense is what you're saying is likely true, that this planet is in a state of emergency, climate emergency, as well as the COVID and, the impending financial and, we're in a difficult place. And, all of the climate scientists are saying this planet's not going to be inhabitable for humans for all that much longer. Seems to be true, whether it's in our children's or your grandchildren's lifetime. We're not sure how many generations left we have really for this planet being habitable for people and getting the experiences that you got in the 60s and 70s and I got in the 80s and my kids and your grandkids are now having in the 20s. So my feeling is like all of that is real, and that actually feeling some sadness about it is appropriate, right? It's so easy to go into denial about it, but actually turning towards it and feeling some sadness, some grief, and balancing that with, and right now it's like this, and it's, and there you are with your grandkids on Skype, like enjoying a smile. Because, a lot of that is the future, right? Right now, your direct experience and their direct experience is this. I knew I was happy to discuss this more with you. Nice to see you. And that I want to hear more about that movie and the anguish
Give me a
and
call.
the bad guys winning again.
We'll talk.
I think that's about all I have time for tonight. There was a couple other questions. Last question is a big question. I don't have time for it, but it is, can you touch on the impermanence in relationships? When should you let go of toxic relationships? And what's the best way to approach that? Big question. And I'm sorry to not give it more time to investigate this with you, but I will just encourage that if you've identified it as a toxic or abusive relationship, that get out of compassion for yourself. You deserve to be treated well, and also out of compassion for the person who's suffering and confused. We're not doing them any favors by staying in a situation where they're just creating more and more negative karma for themselves around their confusion, toxicity, abuse, whatever it is that's coming up. So as far as the best way to approach that, everyone has different ways of doing that, and your partner best. My own tendency is to just have an honest conversation and walk away when it's become clear. Easier said than done, and I'm sorry I don't have more time. Crystal, if you'd like to reach out to me, we could discuss a little bit more. You could contact me on the Instagram DM or Facebook or something like that. My emails, my name, Noah Levine at MSN. Happy to give you a little support around that. We'll end here tonight. Thanks for checking in with the Sangha. Good to see everybody. Couple of announcements. One is this is the new Against the Stream t-shirt I just got today. Mike Giant drawing. Just took some pictures. I'll put it up on the website and be available this week. So if you want one of those, there's t-shirts and sweatshirts, crew neck sweatshirts. The Ajahn Amaro 3-month study and practice course that I'm going to be teaching based on one of his books. Registration's open for that on the againstthestream.com website. We're going to start in September, so in a couple months. It's a thick book, so if you're going to join, register, you can download the book, the PDF for free, and you can start studying so that when you show up to the first class in September, you'll have some things to discuss and practice with us. So consider registering for that. Registration's open. I'm delusionally hoping that we'll be able to have a residential retreat this fall. It's feeling less and less likely. Maybe we'll be looking at next year to actually meditate together for a long-term, residential silent retreat. But we're still hoping that we'll be able to do the October retreat. We'll see. Seems unlikely to me at the moment. Lastly, financial support for Against the Stream is necessary. The monthly donations that have been coming in aren't quite covering the rent on the space, and which means that I'm not getting any financial support at all from the teachings. Everything I've been, paying the rent on the center for quite a while now myself. And we're getting close, the donations, we have monthly donors, people are, we're getting close to covering the base rent here. But we need to bring in about $1,000 more a month. And the best way to do that is for people who want to support what I do and what the center does, to become monthly supporters and just say I can give $25, $50, $100 or more monthly, so that actually the base costs of running the nonprofit, the center, are covered. Of course, all of your donations, monthly supporter, are tax deductible. We are a 501c3. So many of you who come regularly on Mondays are monthly supporters. But if you're not and you feel moved to support my work, the Against the Stream Center community, please become a monthly supporter, or of course, you can just give a one-time donation for tonight's class or anytime you drop into classes. Donations are received. Best to probably just go through the website or go to Venmo or PayPal. But to make sure you have the right link, probably best to go through the website. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thanks for practicing. Thanks for coming and sitting with me in the room, everybody who showed up. I think that's it. May any goodness that comes from our practice and discussion of the Buddha's Dharma be shared outward in all directions. May each one of us find the freedom that we seek. And together may we create a positive change on this planet.